All right, I know some of you are skeptical of Dexter Resurrection after what happened in the last two seasons of the original show and the lukewarm feeling a lot of you had to Dexter New Blood, the miniseries follow-up. But rest assured, longtime Dexter fans, Dexter Resurrection is a great return to form for everybody's favorite serial killer, and I think this is going to be the comeback that a lot of you have been waiting for over a decade at this point. Folks, in tonight's show, we're going to be talking the season premiere of Dexter Resurrection, A Beating Heart. Stay tuned. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the show. Like I mentioned, tonight we're going to be talking the season premiere of Dexter Resurrection, A Beating Heart. Now, I'm going to be covering every episode of the first season of this show week after week, but keep in mind, these are going to be spoiler-heavy recaps. So, if you have not watched the episodes yet, you're going to want to turn it off and come and tune back in after you've had a chance to catch up. And if you don't mind spoilers, then you're good to go. So let's not waste any time. Of course, hit that subscribe and follow button to stay up on our recaps of the rest of the season. But let's jump into A Beating Heart. Now, New Blood felt very, very different in tone and structure of what we were used to, and at that time was the typical Dexter episode or the typical Dexter season. We weren't really getting much of the common dark passenger that we usually saw portrayed by James Remar as his father Harry. We weren't really getting that many victims on Dexter's kill table. The same fun cast of characters that we had gotten used to experiencing Dexter around in Miami Metro were no longer around him. Now, I can totally understand folks really not enjoying Dexter New Blood because of those specific reasons, because it is very, very different from the original show, even from the last two seasons that a lot of folks out there really didn't enjoy. But that being said, it being a miniseries, it is supposed to feel decidedly different from that original show, and if anything, make us long for a lot of the things that we were getting in the Dexter franchise up until that point. And that is really where Dexter Resurrection already seems to be helping out a lot of long-term fans who might have been turned off by what New Blood brought. First of all, we have to address the ending of New Blood, to where Dexter's son Harrison shoots him. He survived the gunshot, he was taken to the Iron Lake Hospital, and Dexter, we see, is now in a coma. This is where he gets visited by a number of faces from the past. We found out prior to the debut of Dexter Resurrection that we are going to be seeing John Lithgow back as the Trinity Killer. We're going to see Eric King back as Sergeant James Dokes. We are going to see Jimmy Smits back as Miguel Prado. And something I thought was really cool, they brought back Eli Sherman and Xander Mateo as Little Dexter and Young Brian from Dexter Original Sin. So we got our first sighting of Dexter Original Sin cast members. What we're seeing here is while Dexter is in this coma, all these characters are basically visiting him to kind of call him out for his past behavior over the last decade plus that we've seen in the Dexter franchise. Now, of course, this encounter does play out a little bit like A Christmas Carol, but surprisingly, Dokes' role in this is to actually push Dexter into choosing to help Harrison out so he doesn't actually become what both Arthur and Miguel are accusing Dexter of really being, which is just a heartless serial killer. Now, no clue if we're going to see these characters make another appearance before the end of the season, but I would hope that when Dexter starts dealing with other serial killers, that would make a lot of sense to see Dokes and Miguel and Arthur all pop up yet again. Now, this is all cemented by the return again of James Remar as Harry, as Dexter's true dark passenger. This is one thing that was really missing from New Blood, because the dark passenger that we really encountered with Dexter in that was Jennifer Carpenter's Deborah. That made a lot of sense because, again, the different feeling of that show wasn't looking for the happy, upbeat, loving nature that we mostly tended to see with Dexter and Harry when they were talking to each other, dark passenger to serial killer. Deb had to be there to basically show that Dexter's choices have all led up to the bullshit situation that he was in, and that Harrison, unfortunately, was forced in as well, too. So seeing Harry return shows that Dexter really is getting back to his older self, that he's no longer Jim Lindsay, that Jim Lindsay is dead and left after Harrison shot him, and Angela covered this up, which also is a big part here. We find out that the reason why Dexter's not being taken off in handcuffs and being identified as the actual Bay Harbor Butcher is the entire mess was righted by Chief Bishop before she decided to leave town. She basically said that she got the accusation of Dexter being the Bay Harbor Butcher wrong, and then she was the one that shot him because of that accusation. But because she had her information all messed up, she is letting Dexter off the hook and she's taken off. Obviously, this is to make sure that she can't be questioned by anybody, including the returning Angel Batista, who was contacted by Chief Bishop in Dexter New Blood and was also told that, again, Dexter is the Bay Harbor Butcher. Now, it's fantastic to see David Zayas back here, and he's going to be here as a normal cast member, so we're going to be seeing him very, very regularly here on the show. But you can already feel the tension when Batista shows up. You know, this is Dexter's longest relationship that he's had. We've seen the origins of this in Dexter Original Sin, so making its way here to Resurrection, we know that this is a big deal, that Batista is potentially finally turning on Dexter. And he even mentions the fact that LaGuardia, of all people, was the one who told him that Dexter was the Bay Harbor Butcher so many years ago. And while he dismissed it then, somebody else without any relation to LaGuardia at all now making that same accusation. Where there's smoke, there's fire, and it's very clear that Batista wants some answers. Now, I had said in my lead up here, talking about the 5 things that I wanted from this show, that we don't want Batista to be an idiot. You have to show that Batista is actually a really, really good cop who is typically just trying to find the truth here. And I think the way they showcase Batista here in this first episode, showing that, sure, he's happy to see Dexter, but at the same time, so much is what has happened from Dexter's disappearance at the end of the original show, and Chief Bishop reaching out to Batista is leaving so many questions for him and confusion. And in that case, that's meaning that there's something more sinister going on. So Batista is clearly not being taken in by the fact that Dexter is still alive. He's very clearly focused on this goal here and wants some answers. And of course, this leads Dexter to having to escape from the Iron Lake Hospital in order to track Harrison down as a way of getting away from Batista, who is very clearly going to be hot on his trail. This is the most focused that we've seen Batista been. And now with him trying to track Dexter down and get some answers, he's also had Dexter declared alive, specifically for the purpose of being able to prosecute him if it is true and he finds out that Dexter really is the Bay Harbor Butcher. I'm really looking forward to see how this evolves, because as we know, this season is going to deal with Dexter meeting a lot of other serial killers in New York. So is this going to end up being another situation kind of like what happened with Saxon, and like has been implied over the course of the original show, to where Batista is going to have to turn his head and let Dexter do what he's doing? And if Batista is going to be the big bad, like, yeah, every season will have its own, but if Batista is ultimately going to end up being the final boss, that means we're looking for a showdown between the two that ends with Dexter or Batista dead, or Dexter ultimately in jail. That seems to be where we're ultimately going to go with this, but we don't know. Great appearance here from David Zayas. This very much has me excited for the direction of Batista here throughout the rest of this first season. Now, as for Harrison we see is off in New York. We're living a couple months after he shot Dexter dead, and we see that he is still dealing with the effects of PTSD. We already saw that Harrison clearly had a lot of issues that he was dealing with in Dexter New Blood, and he had hoped that by reuniting with Dexter, a lot of those things would be addressed. But as we saw, Dexter wasn't really trying to look out so much for Harrison. He was trying to kind of mold Harrison into the same kind of killer that he was, and ultimately still feeding his own dark passenger. And this led to Harrison really still feeling even more confused than he was, not getting the information that he ultimately really wanted from his father, and needing to shoot him at the end of that series. By us getting a second chance of reconciliation between Dexter and Harrison, I'm hoping that's going to build to something better, because we see that Harrison does definitely regret shooting Dexter, but so far, we as the audience don't know if that's necessarily something that he should be regretful here over, because we need to see a change here in Dexter. So long he's been living just to serve this dark passenger, and there's been times throughout like every incarnation of this show to where he's trying to put others before him, and it ends with that person dead or suffering some sort. It doesn't end with typically anything good happening for them, except for Julia Stiles, which seems to be the only character that actually got out. Lumen actually got a bit of a happy ending from all of this, surprisingly, which makes me believe that Lumen could always show back up here in Dexter Resurrection as well. But we have to see an evolution here from Dexter in order for this reconciliation to actually hold any kind of merit. Because if we're just dealing with the same Dexter that we saw, even though we loved that Dexter in the original show, that's not worthy of Harrison feeling this PTSD and feeling remorse over what he ultimately did. If we can see an evolution in Dexter, then Harrison's feelings actually hold a lot of weight here. So it's only the first episode, but I'm excited to see how that unpacks, especially because Harrison is clearly somewhat following in his father's footsteps as he ends up getting his own kill in this first episode. He's working at the Empire Hotel in New York, and he ends up killing a guest that was planning on raping another guest at this hotel. After this, we get to see Harrison work with some of the skills that, again, he apparently picked up from Dexter as he takes apart this body and disposes of it with the trash service that comes by. But unfortunately for Harrison, things are not that easy, and it's very clear that he doesn't have his father's years of experience, as the bodies are found at the dump, and we're introduced to a new pair of detectives who are seemingly going to end up being the big foils here for Dexter this season. We get Detective Wallace and Detective Olivia, who have a knack for picking out evidence here about serial killers, and this leads them right back to the Empire Hotel, which means that sooner than later, they're gonna be on Harrison's tail here. Now, Dexter does end up making it to New York. We know that everything's gonna end up converging sooner than later. I imagine within the next couple episodes, we're gonna hit that right here on the head, but Dexter is going to have to step in order to help Harrison out, or else both of them could end up in jail sooner than later. Finally, the episode basically ends by introducing us to Uma Thurman's character, who seems to be following around somebody that turns out to be a serial killer. Because as she investigates this guy's place, she ends up finding a trophy collection of driver's licenses with some blood on it, and she ends up leaving them there with a hefty load of cash and an envelope. She then ends up communicating with somebody that the invitation has been delivered. So I have to imagine this is going to end up involving Peter Dinklage and the other serial killers that have been teased here for this season of Dexter Resurrection. We're not given enough information to know the significance of what's going on. I imagine more of this is going to be rolled back here, again, as I've been saying, as the season plays out. But we got a whole season to get through. Let's see if it can maintain this feeling. There's a lot of threads being set up in this first episode, but A Beating Heart really seems like a great way to get these fans who feel they have been pushed off from this franchise right back into it. You can check out the first 2 episodes of Dexter Resurrection on Paramount Plus right now, but I'll be back next week with coverage of episode 2. So again, hit that subscribe and follow button so you can keep following along with that. And you can also follow my link tree at linktr.ee/T Scary Movie to catch all of my horror content. That'll give you access to the YouTube page for the video versions of the show, your favorite podcasting platforms for the audio only versions of the show, my Letterboxd page for written reviews and movie rankings throughout the year, my TikTok page for short horror content including movie news, movie premieres, and movie reviews, my Twitch page for horror gaming, and my Fangoria shop page for a 20% discount off anything in the Fangoria shop. Check out my channel right now, y'all. Right now, I got a lot of great content up there for you, including an interview with Sam Lasky, one of the writers of the upcoming sci-fi horror film Ick. We had a great conversation. If you are a big 2000s music fan, this is not an interview that you want to miss at all. But also, later this week, folks, I'm going to have a review out for I Know What You Did Last Summer. We're going to talk The Ritual and Marshmallow. You do not want to miss any of that, so hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button, no matter where you're watching or listening. But that's going to do it for me here tonight, folks. My name is T. We've been talking scary movies. Stay scared.